Welcome to Real People, Real Life, where everyday conversations lead to extraordinary insights. We're all about digging into the lives of regular people who've achieved success on their own terms. This is Real People, Real Life. And now your host, Ryan Chereau.
All right, Max, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. It's been a couple years since I've seen you.
Yeah, has been a little while.
So right now, America has this, oh no, it's the sales guy mentality. I go through these big box stores. You see these ineffective salespeople. Everyone has their pat answer. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I already got it. You know, and there's literally no skill in the pitch. Over 10% of the workforce is in sales, and I think it's higher than that because they describe that online as like direct sales, you know, going straight to the person and trying to pitch them. But in my opinion, every dollar on the balance sheet comes from a sale. So you're selling in one, whether it's direct sales or indirect sales. The reason I believe that the pitches from most salespeople and why America cannot stand the sales guy, and that's a very big generalization, is because so many of these job offerings are no experience required, no degree required, we will train you in-house. Okay, so all of this stuff is out there, and you get a wide range of people. And then the companies bring them in and really just numbers. I'm going to read a couple of complaints from the American public regarding salespeople. Get my glasses on here. Many customers feel a sense of pressure or manipulation during sales interactions, especially if the salesperson is perceived as aggressive or pushy. That's a big one. High pressure tactics, lack of product knowledge, over-promising, under-delivering.
Big one.
Poor listening skills, disregard for follow-up. So I ran my company, and on the podcast, we talk about it. And for years, the majority of the time I ran my company, I never had sales guys. I was it. I went out there. I knew I could do the best job. The environment changed, and it became necessary for me to put an ad. And I fought that for a while, but eventually I did. And I got a ridiculous amount of applications. It was crazy. And I went through them, and I kept coming across this car sales guy. And in my mind, I'm like, no. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking that car sale, everybody right now just pictured him, you know, and we're like, no, we can't do that. But then I decided to reach out to you, and we had a conversation, and you blew my mind. Do you remember the conversation?
Yes.
And one of the things I asked you was, well, you don't know, what do you know about air conditioning?
Nothing.
And he started, that's a great interview, right? You start off with, I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah.
But then you began to pitch yourself, sell yourself, and why you know you can do it. And what was some of the things you had told me, if you recall, why you as a professional salesperson knew you could be successful in a field that you've never sold?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember that.
You told me that you will know more about the product that we sell than the people installing it. And I said, okay. And how do you intend to do that? He said, I'll get as much information as I can. And that was a precursor for you in order to sell it. If you understood what you were selling, product information, one of the biggest complaints is they don't know much about the product. And that's exactly what you did. Within a couple of weeks, you probably knew more about model numbers and features than I actually knew. And I think the biggest eye-opener was realizing what a crappy sales guy I was for 20 years. And that all of these ads that are requesting people to apply for jobs in sales are missing the point. it is a high skilled, it's a high skilled career. It is not, no experience necessary. The training, in my opinion, takes years in order to become really, really good at it. You became one of our best salespeople ever. Now, we did change our business model and went more of a non-direct sales way, and we went our separate ways, and you stayed in sales.
Yep.
So what do you tell people that are thinking about applying to one of these sales jobs, no experience required? What are some of the expectations and hard work and dedication required to become successful at it?
Genuine. I think people can see through when you don't believe in the product or you don't believe in the company, and you're just there for a paycheck, that kind of thing. People see through it, and yeah, you'll land some sales, you'll get some deals, but in the long run, or month in, month out, you're not going to see the results that you would if you actually wholeheartedly believed in the product. One is you said it. One is listening. You have to listen, and you have to know where the pain points are. You have to know what actually is a factor that will help them make a decision. And a lot of salespeople, quote unquote, they do all the talking, right? And it's like, hey, me, or my product. And a lot of it's like, hey, how can you build rapport and just listen, and figure out and ask questions to figure out what is actually needed or what they are actually looking for. Don't assume that you know what they're looking for. And then I think the last thing is just you have to earn the right, which is one thing that I learned later, especially in car sales. You have to earn the right to ask for the sale, right? So you can't just get to the test drive and say, oh, cool, this is a great looking car. It fits your budget. Let's go run finance or whatever. It's like if you haven't earned the right to ask for the sale, you're never going to get it.
I want to touch on that right now, and then we'll go back to how you got into sales.
Yeah.
What are what do you mean by earn the right to ask for the sale?
Yeah. Did you build rapport? Do you have any sort of connection with this person? People buy from people they like. It's plain and simple. For the most part, unless there's some sort of FOMO, where they're fearful of something, most of the time people are buying from people they like. And so how do you get people to like you? You start having a conversation. You figure out why they're there. You figure out what they like to do on the weekends. You figure out where they grew up or what sports team they like. And you have just, you build some rapport. That's kind of, opens up the avenue for them to kind of start indulging you on what they're looking for or what they're doing. And then you go through the steps and figure out what actually is a factor for them to buy and a reason why they're there. And if you skip a step, let's say, if you don't uncover a truth or uncover a reason why they're looking for the product that you're selling, then you're going to probably assume that they, are there for one reason and it's really the opposite reason. And then so when you ask for the sale, you didn't uncover the true reason. And so you didn't earn the right, in the relationship to ask for that sale. And most of the time you won't get it.
I've known you 6 years.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, just really quick. You're very intelligent. You're well-spoken. You're a good thinker. I like that you're a critical thinker. That's one of the things I liked about you when I first met you. You went into sales. What was your driving force? You could have done anything that you put your mind to. In sales, you have a passion for it. How did it all start?
Yeah. Well, first, I'm very analytical. So I kind of think about everything, every company that I've ever been at. Like I want to know specifically every aspect, every department, and that way I can fully understand the product, and the product being the company that I'm selling, not just the actual product. And that's big for me to fully understand, and it goes back to what you said earlier. If I fully understand it, I feel more comfortable teaching it and or selling it. So I like to know every aspect of everything, and I treat it as if it's my own. Going back, getting into sales, that started with my dad for sure. My dad could sell anything to anyone. We always joked that, he would sell ice to an Eskimo or things like that, right? And it wasn't that he was, necessarily overly trained in sales. My dad ran his own business for basically my entire life. And he, again, everything is sales. He's got to sell the idea of his business. But then we started buying and selling motorcycles, dirt bikes, street bikes, buying and selling cars, boats, you name it. We were either finding it on I grew up in Northern California, so we'd look in the classified ads, Sacramento Bee, and there'd be this boat or this dirt bike or, whatever. And I think my dad was very good and still is. He just had the ability to know what something's worth, right? I still don't fully understand how he knows what everything's worth in every market almost. You're like, it's a golf club. And he's like, oh, that, it so doesn't fit with what he normally buys and sells, but he kind of just has a feel for what it's worth. And I think a lot of that came from, like, we used to go to the flea market all of the time. And it's just, kind of work on your haggling, your negotiation, just seeing what's out there. And I remember one of the biggest things about kind of negotiation that we were at the flea market one day, and I don't even remember what he was looking at or what we were trying to buy, but he got this guy down, it was $20, and then he's like, well, I only have $5. And the guy, and so it was back and forth for a little while, and then, they agreed on 7 or something like that. But I remember he said multiple times that he only had X dollars. And then once they agreed on the price, my dad whips out a wad of cash for like $500. And I was like, what? That didn't make sense. I was probably 10 years old, right? So then it just kind of, I was curious and just got excited about the ability to buy and sell things and just kind of be able to talk to anyone. I know, my mom always wanted me to be an engineer like her dad. My granddad was an engineer in the Air Force way back in the day in World War II and designed airplanes. And so my uncle, my mom's brother, also an engineer, so like it was kind of in the family, and she always like, well, you're so good at math, you should be an engineer, all these things. And just never. Did
it ever pique your interest, engineering, or did you just were enamored with the art of the sale and the negotiating and the bartering?
Yeah, I think the art of the sale was always tip of the mind for me. Like I never really found the urge to be an engineer. Just didn't really click. I didn't really like school. I was good at it. I got good grades. I didn't really have to study or try hard, but like academics weren't really like what drove me. I always wanted to learn more about sales, I think. And especially as I got older, again, learning that every company needs to sell a product or an idea. And then it just kind of stuck that, that's where you can make a lot of money, and that's where you can basically be in sales in any industry, any product. And
some of the highest paid people in America are salespeople.
Yeah.
Especially at some of the big corporations. Sales can produce a significant income.
Yeah.
But it is a skilled trade. And I strongly believe in things can be learned. And it's just pitched, as I said at the beginning, as something that requires no skill.
Yeah.
Come on in, anybody's welcome.
Yeah.
So out of high school, mom's pushing you for engineering. Yeah, you could do it. Math was easy. School, if you wanted to, you could probably do it. Go through the school, go through the math, science, everything required. But that was in your belly, that burning desire to sell, to barter, all the things you did as a kid with your dad. When you got out of your house, did you do any college?
The burning desire back then was probably just racing motorcycles, honestly. But so
your dad's buying and selling motorcycles and things with motors in them. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, and we kept 1 or 2 of them and started racing, and that was definitely the burning desire, I feel like. But no
motocross in your future, though.
No.
Did you compete?
I did a little motocross when I was real young, probably 10, 12, somewhere in that range. And then once I turned 17, I started racing road bikes.
Okay.
So, like closed course, Infineon, Raceway, Laguna Seca, that kind of thing.
Were you competitive?
I was still considered a novice, but still, winning races and never made it to the pro circuit, but probably could have if, we didn't run out of money and had more time. But no, I think, sales was always kind of curious, or I was curious about sales. And I think back to your point about salespeople can make a ton of money. One thing that I heard in high school, I believe, it must have been high school, was that the highest paid people at Nordstrom were the shoe salesmen, right? And I think we even talked about that once I started with you. It was like that was something that I had heard for a long time.
So I worked at Nordstrom.
Okay.
And
I remember.
Yes. 18, 19. And then I was in maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
So this is actually where I dabbled into learning about air conditioners and things, which ended up shaping what I do today. But every Christmas, they would offer people that worked there already to cover shifts for sales.
Okay.
I had a friend in men's suits. So the best two departments to work in was men's suits and men's shoes. The problem with men's suits is there's a huge learning curve. Unless you're a suit guy.
Right.
Right. Gabardine and fitted and all sorts of, the learning curve's outrageous. So that wasn't a shoe-in, no pun intended. But the shoe department, he's like, get into shoes. Ask him if you can sell. Give him one day. And the thing about men's shoes, and the reason why they make so much money, are men are hunters and gatherers. And they come in with a mission. And their mission is to buy that pair of athletic shoes, or that mission is to buy that pair of cap toes, or whatever it is. And they buy it, and the returns are on this low percentile. Now, women's volume is significantly higher than men's volume, but the returns are astronomical on the women's side. At the time, they paid 10% of the sale. Mm-hmm. And so I signed up for the day, and I worked, and a guy comes in, tennis shoes or sports shoes. I brought him out his shoes. Buys the shoes. I'm like, well, this is easy. So the manager asks me to come back, and I started thinking to myself, well, they're all buying shoes from me. Why don't I bring them out like 6 different types? So a guy comes in for athletic shoes. I grab 2 different types of athletic shoes. I'd buy a brown pair of loafers. I'd bring some dress shoes, black, brown. I'd have this box I'd be carrying out of the storeroom, and all the sales guys are looking at me like I'm nuts. And I would focus on this shoe, and I said, well, you like this style shoe. Have you thought of this shoe in a dress that is known for its comfort? Know about the product. I wasn't trained, but I just like talking to people and listening to what they wanted. And every time I worked, I was the number one sales guy to where they wanted me to come work full time in it. The money was ridiculous. These guys were making 6 figures, and this is 30 years ago. A pair of shoes at Nordstrom was $300.
Yeah.
A Ferragamo was $400 or $500. It wasn't hard to do the math and see how you could make without very little returns. In sales, the other thing in sales that tripped me out when I was there is their number one salesperson for Northern California in Nordstrom made $1 million a year. And she was retiring, and they brought her around, and for like 4 or 5 years straight, she was clearing $1 million a year in her commissioned sales.
Yeah.
Working for Nordstrom. They would shut the store down, and she'd bring her clients in to do shopping.
Private events.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
$50,000, $100,000, $250,000 in sales, private events just for her. She networked so well.
Yeah.
So knowing that in sales you can make a lot of money a long time ago, that's piqued your interest. And you liked it.
And I liked it. And it wasn't very difficult, I think things that you're good at, you seem to, be attracted to them a little bit more. And it wasn't like I was out doing manual labor in the summer, lifting a hammer or what have you. So I think that was appealing too. And then now, as you get older and as you get more tenured, depending on the company, obviously, if you're in retail sales, you have less flexibility, but like outside sales, you have a little bit more flexibility with your schedule and things like that. So that always helped versus, just working a straight 9 to 5.
Yeah, and you have a pretty active lifestyle.
I do. Try to anyway.
So you grow up. One day you realize, oh, damn, I got to pay my own bills. I got to put my big boy pants on now. I can't just play around buying and selling motorcycles. Dad was the one with the talent to see the value. But now I'm here responsible for myself. What was your first actual real sales job that you required and depended on to pay your bills?
Yeah. Probably I worked at a motorcycle shop. I wasn't in vehicle sales, so I wasn't selling motorcycles, but I think it was probably not even 18 yet, selling parts. People would come in and need parts or accessories or anything like that. And that was commission. It was, like hourly plus commission. Mm-hmm. So the commission wasn't great, but you could see kind of just like you had mentioned with Nordstrom, and it kind of made your entrepreneurial brain fire off like, oh, hey, if they're coming in and buying shoes, let me throw a couple extra shoes at them and see if they'll buy it. And so it was kind of the same, trigger in my brain. Like, hey, they need this one particular product. Let's just say a new helmet. Yeah, but if they're in here for a new helmet, why don't they need new jacket or boots or, whatever? And so it's like, just throw a couple things at them, see what sticks. And that was probably the first real job that, required selling. I think before that I was just doing odds and ends things. So I might have been 18 at that point, and had just kind of started moving out, from the parents' house.
You saw hope, like, wow, I'm making more money. You're doing the math in your head. That's kind of what I did.
Yeah.
I start extrapolating.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm selling one pair of shoes and that was their whole focus to come in on, well, show them 6 pair of shoes.
Right.
All of different. Maybe they're in the shoe brain right now. They're thinking shoes.
And it is funny that the way you said that though, like guys typically know what they want and or know something about what they want. They go in, they get it, and they leave. Well, most of the time.
That's the other thing I noticed though, is because I would have a conversation. Now I wasn't trained. I've always been an entrepreneur, so I was always bartering and buying and selling or having little businesses. So I was good at talking to people.
Yeah.
And I found that like 95% of these guys came to Nordstrom to buy a pair of shoes. It was never, I'm just shopping, going to go check out the mall today.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go look at some pants. It's like, no, I need to get myself a pair of running shoes. It was always very focused. I'm thinking, well, her brain is all shoes today. Let me just bring out tons. People looked at
especially
me.
Back then. Definitely more like the guy mentality back then was go in, get it, check the box, check the list, and get out. I think there's definitely a lot more shoppers probably today, but
possibly.
Yeah.
I think what surprised me was, to me, it was just, it came natural to offer them what they came looking for.
Right.
In variety. I don't see that. You get very one-focused salespeople, very one-dimensional. They're focused on moving this particular thing, and that's their total focus. And they lose me very quickly. I find most sales guys I work with are disingenuous. You can see right through their facade. How do you get past the preconception of some people, like myself, who are going to say, well, here he is. He's after my wallet. Even though I'm the one that put myself in that place to go shopping. This is something people need to remember, right? The customer, in a lot of cases, have put themselves in front of you. I mean, not too many door-to-door salesmen put themselves in front of you in your place of work or have reached out to you, but they still come across like me, like, okay, this guy's just going to screw me over.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of had that mentality, the used car salesman, oh, here he comes, right? Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I think that's definitely a way you have to listen, you have to figure out why they're there, you have to build some rapport, Obviously, there are a ton of different industries to try to sell in. I haven't dabbled in, the majority of them, but been in electronics, been in automotive, sporting goods, construction, now construction software. So I've done a handful of industries, especially, when you have a customer that is coming through your doors, whether that's in person or via the phone or email or something like that, there's some interest. You're never going to sell every customer. And I think that's especially for the new salesperson, you have to be okay with rejection.
Yes. Big deal.
And one of my good friends was my sales manager when I was in automotive for a few years. And, we always joke, and this is something that he taught me. It's like, I'll take a no as easily as I'll take a yes. Give me a no and I move on, because it's a numbers game, right? But if you don't give me a no, then it's like, hey, there's still maybe something there. Let's do some follow up. Let's keep them engaged if possible. You're kind of spending time on this entity that you don't know if it's ever going to pan out. But most of the time they came to you and they said, hey, we're interested in X, Y, or Z. And then, so it's like, hey, there's maybe still some hope there to create a deal out of this. But if you get a no, it's like, cool, beat it. Change your focus, pivot, and focus on the next lead or the next customer or something like that. Again, one of my things is about sales is being genuine, just like you said. So I don't know. I think it's got to be, again, you have to believe in the product. You have to believe in the company. You have to have the knowledge, and believing in the product and believing in the companies comes from the knowledge of what it is that you're selling, whether that's in the industry and the product, or some combination of company product information, or knowing more about the competitors and how they maybe do stuff a little bit different than you guys do it, and never talk bad about a competitor, because that's
critical.
That is very critical. That's always like, hey, I've never worked at that company. I don't know what they do, but this is what we do, and this is why we're better. You come across genuine, and you're not trying to talk down about anyone else, because who knows, one day you might go work over at that next company.
One of the things, being genuine was natural. I owned the company. It was very easy for me to be very genuine with a potential sale of why my company can provide what we provide. My name is on the building. My name is on the product. And I wanted to make sure what I told them was what they're going to get, because they're calling me.
Right. You're the face of the company. Oh, guess what? It's your company.
That's correct. What I learned from you, however, the biggest lesson that I learned from you is that I believed in the product and company so much that I didn't take a no answer, but not assigning within the next day or two as, well, move on to the next guy, move on to the next guy, move on to the next guy. When you went out, the thing I was really impressed with is your ability to continually nurture a relationship. We were selling items for 10, 15, 20, 30,000 on up to hundreds of thousands of dollars towards the end. And I would be impatient, right? Because it's not a realized sale. How do you were dedicated to a lead. You nurtured some of these leads for over a year. Some people would call you a year later, and you just routinely would drop them a note. Any questions? Anything I can do? Any concerns? I didn't have that patience. And what keeps you engaged in the sale when it drags and drags and drags and keeps your spirit up?
Yeah, that's tough. So just to lay it out there, I've never been like the type of person that comes in and I'm going to come in and hard close you on the day. And it's just kind of goes back to some of those complaints or whatever you read earlier that, people have expressed with salespeople. They're pushy or they don't quite understand what they're looking for or what have you, and they're like trying to drive for that same day close. And I love same day closes. But what I was really good at was follow up. And it was basically just staying on top of anything that came across your desk. And I think part of that was, again, going back to my brain, I'm very analytical, is like compartmentalizing, putting different leads in different buckets and being able to say, okay, these are, the higher priority because they've expressed, some sort of buying signal that says, hey, we're looking to buy in the next week or month or what have you. And then there's certain things that, people are waiting for some sort of, trigger, if you will, still very much lead. And I think one thing that I think I was pretty good at and am pretty good at is just kind of learning enough about this prospect to see, did they like me enough? Did they like the product enough? Did I hook them enough to earn their business, whether that's today or in 6 months, right? And if it's a deal that's in 6 months, like, okay, I only have to do X, Y, or Z over the next, month. Let's say you have a monthly cadence to keep them engaged long enough to kind of, again, extend that relationship to get them to buy. And whether that's timing, a lot of times, like now, it's like, there's a change in management when I'm selling business to business, or it's like seasonality, things like that, where, you might talk to someone in the middle of summer and they're not in a position to buy. And when construction slows down, then they start thinking about some housekeeping items and thinking about that, hey, we're ready to start exploring this. Okay, well, just because I met you, 6 months ago doesn't mean I'm going to forget about you. So I think it is very much like staying on top of and staying organized with your leads, your follow-up process, and how much energy you're giving to each and every, bucket, if you will.
It's starting to sound like this sales position does require some skill. No skill required, no experience.
No skill required.
Yeah, we talk about...
And I think real quick, what kind of kept it on the hook is going back to, if you're in sales and you make a commission, you know exactly how much commission you can earn on each particular deal. And so, I think I'm a fairly patient person, impatient with certain things, of course. But then if you see, okay, I've got certain deals working that are high priority that I'm trying to close in the next week or the next month, but then you kind of have this pipeline that like, okay, this group of people or customers I can try to close next month and then the following, and they require a certain cadence. I think what is kind of the carrot on the stick is how much potential revenue you have without any new leads coming in for that month. If you can do the follow-up and kind of make the stars align for those particular deals, you can say, oh, I've got a potential of X dollars sitting in my bucket because we've already started a conversation. So even with no new leads coming in, which is obviously a killer, sales needs leads. But even if you didn't have leads, you could say, oh, I've got a potential to close, X dollars next month, next quarter, and in future that you can kind of work towards. But again, if you get a no right away, great, get them out of there.
Yeah,
right.
Well, they've made their decision.
Right.
I was impatient. A lot of salespeople are impatient, and you can smell it on them.
Yep.
You're wasting their time. They haven't really put the effort in. I think patience seems to be a skill set necessary, especially when you have the pipeline, and not giving up on those, understanding where you are in each of these things. One of the things people fear is rejection. It's at 100%. The top of the list. Every teenage boy seeing the pretty girl in the class.
Teenage boy, that lasted a lot longer than that.
Yeah, so every guy, rejection.
Yeah,
it's socially embedded in our soul. We don't like it. It's an anathema. It makes us uncomfortable. It could create ostracism. We avoid it at all costs. In business, in sales, you are putting yourself out there for rejection. Now, you had some childhood experiences with rejection and deals going sideways, I'm sure. But when you have to pay your own bills at the very beginning, how would you tell somebody new trying to get into sales, look, this is going to happen. This is how it's going to feel. This is how you can deal with it.
Yeah, that's, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and not all of them are, not many of them are sales related anymore, but like definitely learn, continuously learning about sales. And everyone always talks about like being in the right mindset, just knowing that you're not going to close every deal. And I think we've talked about this a handful of times, is if we're closing every deal, we're too cheap. And we need to up our prices. We need to offer more. We shouldn't be closing every deal. If we're not closing any deals, okay, then we're kind of in the opposite, or the salesperson isn't, doing what they need to be doing. But finding that good close percentage is a good balance. But going back to it, knowing that you're not going to close every deal, okay, you're not going to, if you're cold calling, you're not going to get someone on the phone every time you cold call. If you're actually have inbound leads, you're not going to get someone to progress to the next step with a finance app or with a deal close. It's just not going to happen. So I think it's just being in the right mindset, talking through, like having a good team to bounce an idea off of, learn from, and kind of just start figuring out ways to overcome the objections, whether it's an actual objection or whether it's you get shut down early because they didn't like, the way you presented yourself or something, right? And so it's just kind of, but it's that never give up mentality. Because if you give up, you're not gonna be in sales.
No, a lot of people try to find the secret to everything in life. Well, what's the secret to get here? What are you doing? What was your secret? Oh, I didn't give up.
A lot of hours.
We've mentioned many times, people see the highlight reel. They love the highlight reel. They don't watch the whole movie.
Yep.
People are jealous of what you got, but they don't care how you got there. All of those cliches.
Yeah.
They don't want to do what it takes for you to get there. And that's a big problem. And not giving up, pushing through it. I think if you're approaching it, though, genuine, the way you've described it, a rejection may be easier to take, knowing that you were genuine, you listened, you presented the product which you believe in. Is it easier to take a rejection at the beginning, or is a rejection a rejection?
I think it depends on how confident you were in the sale. If you put a lot of time into it and, you feel like this thing's going to move forward and you've got that rapport, and then you get the rejection, those ones sting a little bit more than if you can weed it out, earlier in the stages. Yeah, it's still rejection, still sucks for sure, especially if you're putting a dollar behind it, which is, right. I think the way I like to look at it, like sales equals dollars and dollars equal me putting food on the table. So and that is one thing. With sales, you kind of got to be money driven. And, you have to figure out, and it doesn't have to be money specifically. It might be, hey, I want to buy this house or something. And that was always one of the things that I loved about sales. It's like, well, I need to do X, Y, or Z. I want to go on this vacation. Well, sell another car, sell another HVAC unit. It's like, how do we, if you were an hourly employee, yeah, well, you got to work overtime. Can you work overtime? Only if the boss lets you, right?
Right.
So I think sales is like, hey, if you want more money, be better at sales, or get another sale or 2 or 3 and earn more money.
And there's so much out there to educate people in sales. It is an art form. And too many people, you're a natural salesperson. I don't think anybody's a natural at anything. They may have some innate qualities that puts them in front of a person a little bit better, but there's skills involved, and skills need to be learned. When you look at yourself as a newbie professional sales guy compared to who you are today, must be two different people.
100%. When you're new, you don't know how to lead the conversation. You know how to get the customer to answer in the way that you want them to answer. A lot of new salespeople, and we actually just went through this not too long ago, and I've probably talked about this, but asking yes or no questions doesn't get you any information that you need to lead the conversation. You know, hey, what brings you in today is way better than, you know, are you here to buy a car, right? Or whatever. And it's getting people to start talking. And this probably led from my mom way back in the day, like dating when I was in high school. Oh yeah, just ask questions. Girls love to talk about themselves, you know, like, and just like,
well, anybody for that matter,
but mostly everyone.
Yeah.
But I remember that, like, oh, I can talk to this girl and not say a whole lot, and I just keep asking questions, and I think that's probably why I just got really good at listening, because I was always the one asking questions.
And you should be in sales. And as you pointed out at the beginning, almost everything in life is about sales.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Day to day, you're having to sell yourself some way or another.
Yep.
So do a lot of listening.
So I think that's the big thing, is leading the conversation. And then once you're really more advanced, it's, you know, if you've ever seen the movie Inception, it's trying, like if I'm trying to sell you on something, I want to create the idea that it's your idea, right? I don't want to pitch you this idea that
try to conform to what you think it should be.
I want to try to insert a couple, you know, tidbits of information and get you to come up with the idea that you need to buy this product or run, you know, the next step. I think a lot of things, people, you know, sales is very much an art, but you also can follow the steps. Again, earn the right task for the sale. Like, did you check all the boxes? Did you uncover what that person or company is looking for? And if you did, then you got to a point, okay, are you ready? And then you can ask for the sale. But again, when you're more established at it, it's like, how do I get that idea to come from you, not from me? Which is...
That's an art.
That's an art.
Yeah, that's putting a lot of skills together.
Yeah.
To create that output.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed as an unskilled sales guy doing the shoes is, I told you earlier, like every guy was coming in to buy shoes. So I thought to myself, why are these guys asking him, how can I help you today? Or what can I do for you today? These questions where people have this knee-jerk reaction of, oh, I'm fine, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
I started saying, you look like you're looking for a new pair of running shoes, because he came in his sweats.
Yeah.
Let me show you some of the ones we have on sale today, or this or that, or it comes in his suit. Have you tried on these Allen Edmonds?
And there's a lot of assumptive type sales that will help you do that as well. You know, like, hey, that guy comes in, rather than, hey, are you looking for a new pair of shoes? Like, hey, what size are you? Or what kind of running do you do? You know, like, again, and that's, if you aren't looking for that, like, what kind of running do you do is a perfect segue to build rapport. Oh, you do trail running? Oh, cool. I hike cows. Or, you know, not a professional, but you probably run more than I do. And then you kind of create some banter there. And all of a sudden you're talking about something other than shoes. And then all of a sudden you're bringing him 5 pair of shoes, and one of them is, you know, or 2 of them are dress shoes or whatever. So
I think that one of the most important things besides the rapport is product knowledge. I was listening to a podcast, and the guy was he was in the market for a car. He was going to buy a car, and he was trying to decide between 2 luxury brands. So he went to the luxury brand and was looking at a specific model. And he asked a whole bunch of questions because it's an expensive car, and he had done his research, and the salesperson knew half about that car than he did.
It's embarrassing.
Then he found himself at a CarMax type thing where they sell multiple cars, or it could have been another dealer that had other models, luxury, because it was all luxury.
Yeah.
And they had the same car on that lot, but they had their brand. And he said the salesperson at the XYZ brand store knew more about the other brand car than the guy that actually worked there. And so he ended up buying the car from the guy that worked at the other place. In other words, understanding what you're selling and be able to have that conversation with the customer as a leader
And that guy
and an expert in whatever you are selling.
Yeah, and that hits two of my things. To your point, the product knowledge, but also that guy buying that car liked the fact that this guy knew everything about the car that wasn't his brand, right? And so again, people buy from people they like. That
right.
was something that he probably felt strongly like, hey, I like this guy. He he's got his knowledge, he's got his ducks in a row or whatever. So, and it's crazy how when you build rapport and people like you, then they trust you. And again, being genuine about it, I wouldn't want to go sell something that I know nothing about, that I don't care about, that it's like, yeah, you can make some money. Oh, go sell insurance. Yeah, but I don't know anything or have any interest in insurance. So I would be completely unsuccessful. But I've always loved cars, kind of started with that. So then it was easy to sell cars.
And you're a man who likes an air-conditioned building.
And I like an air-conditioned building.
You like to be comfortable.
What do you know about air conditioning? Well,
not much, but I like to be comfortable. I say a lot, and I preach this to the people that work with me, is we just so happen to sell air conditioners, but we're in the relationship management business where air conditioners don't write us a check. We are all about building relationships with people, especially when there's problems.
Yep.
And those turn into long-term customers and which help build businesses. And sales is that. You could be selling widgets and cars or whatever, but at the end of the day is, have you built a trusting relationship with a customer willing to spend their money with you?
Yep. And to you, going back to starting your business, you more than likely were successful because you could get excited about it. You knew everything, and you were like, man, this is my company. I'm excited about it. And that goes back to the being genuine about it. When you know the product inside and out and you love it, it's just like talking to your family or to a friend about anything. Oh, I just tried these new shoes, and you got all excited about them.
Yeah.
Or this new golf club. And it's like, how many times did a friend or a family member buy something off a recommendation because you were just excited about it?
It's the cliche, right?
The cliche.
When you go into sales, sell it to your family members, especially if you like it.
Yeah.
And that is where I realized I wasn't a good salesperson. I was genuine, but I didn't have the patience to nurture the relationship through the sale when it would be past just a few days.
Right.
I also realized that made me a bad interviewer of employees too, because listening is a really important, probably the most important aspects of interviewing people. And matter of fact, I had you do a lot of interviewing for me when you worked here because you're a good listener. The problem with being so enthusiastic as the owner of a company is I spend 45 minutes of the hour interview just pitching my company like I'm trying to get them to buy it.
Yeah, I remember.
And there was a point where we had that conversation, and I said, I had to come to the realization, you cannot be doing this, Ryan. This is not, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're trying to sell your company to these people, and versus they should be selling themselves to the company. And that was an interesting turn for you, and you were very successful at it. You actually got us some. Chris, one of our technicians, is one of the guys that you hired.
Oh yeah.
And he's with us today. And
motorcycle
guy, but there you go. You built a rapport, but it was interesting why you wanted to hire him. You knew more about this guy. You said every person you interviewed, you could tell me their life story. Why or why not we should hire this person. And very rarely it had anything, experience was important, but that was never a deciding factor. You were looking at the person, you were digging in, you were listening, you were asking probing questions. And our hiring went to another level during that period of time.
Well, I knew if we got the right person with the right attitude, you could teach them what they needed to know.
You taught me that.
Yeah.
And I was always focused on technical, can I, and that's important. And that was a role that I would play. I would play, hey, we want to get this guy to the next level. So then I would just see what their level was technically. But you were very clear. Listen, if he's got the right attitude, it works with the team. we can train them up in areas we needed them to get stronger in.
Right.
And that's been our hiring focus from this point on. And we use a team effort now. So when we do this, and we have the final interview is the whole team.
I love it.
Myself, Maricela, Ashley, Karina, from accounting to technical planning to me and HR, we all sit down and we do a roundtable with them. And that's the third interview.
Yeah.
So our hiring process has gotten a lot better, and we've grown. We've got a lot quality of better people.
And do you remember when we all read the Dave Ramsey book, and we learned just a lot about, you don't want to hire turkeys, right?
That's right.
Or whatever.
Thoroughbreds over turkeys.
Yeah. And that kind of aligned with what I was thinking too. Like, hey, you know how much money it costs you as the business owner to hire somebody, train them up, opportunity cost of, hey, we needed someone in place and now we got to fire this person. Now we got to start the process over. But if we had the right person with the right attitude, the right mentality, can mesh with the team, yeah, it has the technical knowledge, but maybe is lacking in one thing or another. Like, I was confident that you could train them and get them up to speed on the specifics of that technical, depression, if you will, or whatever that would
deficit.
be.
Yeah,
deficit. There you go.
Technical deficit. But what we found, Max, see, I was so focused on if they're more technical, then that would equate to, better repairs and more money. The problem is that they didn't mix with the team, and so we refocused all that, and we've seen a significant difference in retention and et cetera. So again, sales, right? You were a sales guy who did very well in identifying the needs of, in other words, you sold those employees to me, those potential employees to me, by asking the right questions and things like this. So, in an indirect way, sales are all around us.
Yep.
You've been listening to Real People, Real Life. Our passion is to have real conversations with real people who've made it. Real people who've made it, who did it on their own terms. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, catch us on Twitter or X at RPRL Podcast and on YouTube at Real People, Real Life Podcast.